I want to thank you all for that welcome and thank you all for this opportunity. One of the biggest things that's important in that bio for me is the fact that I am a Phi Theta Kappa scholar. And so these are ways that I have been able to leverage things, or ways that I can see you all being able to leverage things. And I think this topic is very timely, but it's also very important. It's one that I didn't have enough resources when I first started being a student. So I'm grateful that this is something Phi Theta Kappa is taking on, and I'm grateful for the leadership that's led to this conversation. Okay, this is Member Motivational Monday and Membership Motivation Monday. And we are at the part where we're talking about self-advocacy. You are your best asset. Later this week, there will be events on Tuesday with the virtual college fair sponsored by the Coalition for College at 2 p.m. Central Time. And then also later in the day, there will be the Transfer Edge Live, Confessions of a College Admissions Pro at 4 p.m. on PTK Facebook Live. Then on Wednesday, you'll have the infographic job resume workshop with Dr. Lynn Tidcher-Ladner at 2 p.m. Central Time via Zoom. And then later in that day, you'll have how to effectively study in college and beyond with Bartleby at 4 p.m. Central Time. On Thursday, you've got the Apple Career Inspiration at 12 p.m., Hallmark Award Writing at 2 p.m., and PTK Scholarship Tips and Tricks at 4 p.m. And then later this week, you'll have on 10/23 PTK Fanatic Friday with the PTK Kahoot game at 2 p.m., where you can have some fellowship time as well. Let me read this one. Join us for a chat with Apple retail leaders as they share their career journey, leadership, and their role at Apple. Learn about the possibilities and be ready to be inspired to consider a career with Apple. It's not what you think. The Career Inspirational Panel will be on Thursday, October 22nd, 2020 at 12 p.m. to 1:30 Central Standard Time. They've got a link in this PowerPoint to register, and we can send anybody who wants copies of this afterwards, and we'll put an email for you to contact in the chat. Space is limited. Please register by Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. I'm guessing these links are also on the social media with the announcements that came out today also. This is the first event in a series of 2. Future events will include What It Takes to Stand Out on November 4th, to get tips and best practices for creating your resume, learning how to network effectively, and interviewing with confidence. Okay. So the topic today is about self-advocacy. It's something that all students, I hope, are empowered to take on, but it's something we all need in our life. And I think a lot of my life before PTK, I did not understand what self-advocacy could do for my journey, both professionally and academically. But one of the things that Phi Theta Kappa helped me do is be intentional about my personal development and be intentional about my application of the Hallmarks. It gave me a way to use leadership and scholarship. Even the relationships I build through service and fellowship are still part of the network I use today. So one of the things I want to talk about is, what does intention have to do with self-advocacy? The biggest difference I've learned in life is the difference between people who wallow in things and the people who go through things is intentional self-advocacy. It can be one of the hardest things to do, but it can also be one of the most rewarding things you can do. One of the things that we're learning more and more as life and career change is that it's not just about work-life balance, it's also about work-life boundaries and having a life that you're satisfied with. And part of that is self-advocacy. So one of the things I wanted to do is help you develop and understand some of the things in your toolbox. And one of the things Phi Theta Kappa does is they create access to things that other professionals may not have or other college students may not have. And the thing is, just by being a member, you have earned the right to those things. So, sorry, let me open up the chat too. I don't know if I can read both. Okay. Okay. The link to the Apple event has been posted. We will have a time for Q&A later. If there are questions there that people at headquarters can handle that are more about that, feel free to go ahead and continue those chats in the side. But we will have some times for Q&A at the end, and I'll take a break in the middle. So developing, understanding your toolbox. So you have all these tools in your toolbox, and some of you are probably newer to Phi Theta Kappa. Some of you may be in an office and have already served for some time. But every year, Phi Theta Kappa creates more and more resources for you to use because you all are the best of what comes from community colleges. And no matter what people think, the data shows us that people that come from Phi Theta Kappa in the community colleges outperform even the people that start at the four-year universities and graduate. I'm sure that Dr. Lynn could share some data with you on that if you want to see the information. But it's really important to realize that part of the benefits of membership that you've earned are these tools. And that's one of the privileges of membership. There's a lot of people out there that won't have access to these things and won't be able to access things like how to research or how to do a resume with the employment edge, or even being able to practice their writing and get published, whether it's through the Civic Scholar or Nota Bene. There's so many different ways that you can use your membership to leverage things that you care about and things that you love. We're going to look a little bit at those. But the one thing that I want to do, because you are Phi Theta Kappa scholars, is I want to take some of the tools that I've learned through some of my advanced studies and give you all some extra tools that help you organize ways you can self-advocate, because sometimes it's very overwhelming. You know that you want to do something and you know that you can do something, but you may not know the next step, or you may not know how to find your voice or where to go for inspiration or mentorship. And so part of what we're going to look at is how to develop an individual development plan. Higher education and Coupa HR use this for their employees to help them develop employee plans. But what we're going to do today is we're going to use those to develop self-advocacy plans for ourselves. At the end, there will also be a template. And if you contact us, we can send you out the template. So if you want to take notes now, feel free, but there will be an Excel spreadsheet you can use to answer all the questions we'll discuss in this presentation. Not advancing. Okay. So one of the reasons I created an IDP template, which is the individual development plan, is in your head, all these thoughts are floating around. And one of the things that I learned with working with people in rehabs is you have to have this balance between inflow and outflow. That's the information that comes in, and then at some point you've got to express it and information's got to come out. Otherwise, these thoughts go in circles and circles in your head, and there's not a balance that occurs. So one of the things that I used to practice with people in rehab was ways to take in information that was healthy, ways to expose themselves to information that is healthy and works toward the goals that they want to achieve, and then how to not trap all those thoughts in their head, whether it be some people expressed it through song, some people expressed it through making lists, some people expressed it through journaling. The IDP template is one way to get organized in different steps you can take to reach a goal. It also breaks it down into little bite-sized tasks that you can work on with your schedule. The way I've organized it, there are 3 different areas that we'll look at in your life, and you'll pick those areas. And what you'll do is you'll be looking at where I am now and where I want to be in a given amount of time. The first time I did one was where I wanted to be when I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And then after that, where I wanted to be when I got my first administrative position. So the timeline is based on your life and your schedule. But one of the things this will do is help you do little tasks that break down that big goal towards working towards self-advocating for yourself even more. Also, one of the things we'll do is we'll look at a multi-dimensional development plan. It's not just going to be what books you can read. It's not just going to be what workshops you can do. It's going to take things like podcast, or how do I take the new competitive edge and make that work for me in the life goals I have, not just for work, not just for school, but things like family, things like happiness, things like being able to be proud of myself the next day. And so those are keys to developing a plan for self-advocacy. And the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to take my understanding of what PTK had to offer me and has to offer you, and show you different ways that they can be used that are way beyond the classroom, way beyond work. In 2013, I joined Phi Theta Kappa. 5 years before that, I was homeless. And now I'm a commissioner with the Housing Authority, and I have 5 more degrees. Um, the tools are here, and PTK wants to invest in you because your time and your talents are what's going to make our communities better. And we know that because we've seen in you the different hallmarks. And so being able to use this type of template to make your own plan and grow in your own way is something that I think can be really helpful and also can be really empowering. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to choose what areas you're going to work on. And honestly, you can make list and list of different areas to work on. I know people that make lists of 20 things each year that they want to work on. But when I first started, that was really overwhelming because I wanted to work on everything. I know some people in Phi Theta Kappa that may think these are all the areas in which I wish my life was in a better condition, or the world is working against me and I need to self-advocate. But what I tried to do the first time I did is I tried to look at 3 different areas. I tried to look at an area of weakness, because we all have an area in which there is a place or a feeling that we want to confront and make ourselves feel better the next day, whether it's an academic skill we struggle with, whether it is being in a big group of people, whether it is following through with folding your clothes, whatever your area of weakness is. It could be something simple that other people see, but it's something in your life that you're like, oh, I wish I just could get over this and start motivating myself in this area. So an area of weakness doesn't really mean that you're weak, but it's an area in which you see yourself having a lot of room for improvement. The next thing is an area of strength. And I think this is one of the areas where we fall short. It's real easy to be in a space where you might be the brightest person about a certain topic or the most knowledgeable about a certain topic. I don't know whether it's video games or whether it's how to treat animals humane, but there are so many ways that you can be the smartest or strongest person in the room. Sometimes that's really hard. And in Phi Theta Kappa, you're lucky to have peers that can challenge you academically and help support that cognitive growth. But one of the things I found when I worked at a place where there wasn't anybody who could train me on something I had to learn, is that I had to look for self-advocacy outside of my organization. I had to go to places where people were smarter than me, stronger than me, and had stuff to still teach me, and seek that out with being intentional, because the resources weren't within the organization I was part of. And so the second area I pick is an area of strength. So I always push myself to get better. The last area is one of those things that I think helps me keep my fire burning inside, is picking an area of passion. My area of passion used to just be PTK. And as I've gotten older, I've noticed that my area of passion is really helping others be empowered to live a better life. And PTK is very much part of that journey for me. So whatever your passion is, maybe it's baseball. Maybe it is drawing cartoons. Maybe it is supporting your friends on social media. Maybe it is taking people out to learn about women's rights or supporting whatever movement your community needs most right now. But if you pick an area of weakness to work on, an area of strength to work on, an area of passion to work on, it's harder for that voice in your brain to tell you that you're always weak, because you know you've got this area of strength you're working on. It's hard to say that you can't push yourself harder because you're always working on this area of strength in one way or another. And it's hard for people to take away your why because you have a reason or a thing that you're passionate about. I find if I work only on things I'm weak on, that those voices in my head sometimes talk me out of moving forward. And part of self-advocacy, one of the hardest things to do is start. And so once you get a plan and once you lay out these ideas, pick 3 areas in your life where you want to work on it. And picking an area of weakness, an area of strength, an area of passion is an approach you can take. So whatever those are, if you have a minute, or if you've got a pen and a paper, jot down 3 different areas you might want to work on. If you can't think of them right now, that's fine. You'll get a template that you can go through and reflect and fill those in when you're ready, when you've got the area that you really know you want to work on for your self-advocacy. The next thing you're going to do is for each area, you're going to define something. What is the gap between where you are now and where you want to be? And I put in here by the time you earn your degree or certification. Now, the timeline itself isn't important as much as naming a timeline. Because what you're here is you're setting your baseline information, your baseline data. Here's where I'm at. Here's where I assess myself at. Here's where I want to be. And you're creating a timeline in which you can reassess how much you've grown. When I was homeless, my first goal was in 5 years, I want to have a safe place to live. When I reached that goal, my next goal was I want to have housing security that I can self-finance and that be stable. And so by setting those gaps and defining them, here's where I am now, here's where I want to be, and here's the timeline and when I want to do it. Those are the 3 key components to developing your gaps and identifying those in the area. The next thing we're going to talk about is different sessions or webinars or trainings that will help you close these gaps. So one of the cool things that I always loved about Phi Theta Kappa is getting to see different speakers that I wouldn't have gotten to see before. Being able to hear perspectives that I wouldn't have gotten to hear in my hometown in rural Tennessee or at my college, authors that I never would have seen. And so when I identify these areas, whether it's homelessness or whether it's the environment or whether it's LGBT rights or whether it's immigrant rights or whether it's having to do with the people you come from and multilingual rights, there are going to be sessions out there. And right now, honestly, there are a lot of free trainings out there. And while you're at home during COVID, taking advantage of those are ways you can develop both your chance to learn more of what you can do and what is out there for you. Because one of the things I notice is until you're aware that resources are out there, you can't leverage those resources. But one of the things that Phi Theta Kappa does on multi-levels is bring those resources to you. You've got chapter events, you've got regional events, you've got international events, you've got PTK online resources, you've got the independent opportunities, whether it's through doing a resume competition or an interview competition or a public speaking competition or having trivia competitions. There are different individual things you can compete in. There's also honors in action and college projects. And even though I said sessions at the tops, there's activities you do. Maybe you do a team building thing and you learn to trust people more. And that's what you're self-advocating for, building a community you can trust. And so there are ways through all of these things, if you reflect, or as you go through the year, you're like, wow, I can apply that in this area of my life. For me, one of the things that I wanted to do is be healthier. And so this year, because Phi Theta Kappa was an organization I believed in, I did my first 5K ever. And that's something I never thought I would do. I never thought I would physically be able to do with some of the disabilities I had and issues I had early on. But it's one of those things that if you look at the different resources and the different opportunities that are around you, then Phi Theta Kappa presents you a lot of opportunities that if you choose to accept them, might help you empower yourself to be a stronger version of what you want. I also want to say one of the biggest things that Phi Theta Kappa taught me was the difference between the people that move forward and grow and the people that don't is a big part in business. And what they have to do is you have to see opportunity, you have to notice it and identify it, and you have to be willing to lean in and seize those opportunities when they present themselves. So it's one of those things that being able to see opportunity, you can see those when you develop your scholarship applications. You might have never thought about how you were able to help your community grow. You were just having fun with your friends in PTK, but then after that, you saw how the effort you made improved the life of your community, your college, your chapter, whatever group you're working with. And so there are chances for you to use self-advocacy and your passion to grow through these different things. So the next section we're going to talk about is impact focus. When I used this, we did what was called a shadow visit or an internship. Because it's in the era of COVID, I wanted to do something that you could do more digitally. And so I looked at impact focus. So one of the things I wanted you to look at, the 3 areas you picked, your area of weakness, your area of strength, your area of passion. what are ways that you can use each one of those to enhance your self-advocacy? When my area of weakness was health, and I used that for my self-advocacy, one of the ways I could improve my self-advocacy by using this area was the longer I live, the better I feel, the more I can pay forward the things I'm passionate about. So it's one of those things that if you look at the way that each one of these things have a chain reaction or a butterfly effect to the other things you're doing in your life, you start to reflect on and understand the why. And so when those moments when self-advocacy gets hard and you're not sure if you can move forward, when you remember that why, this can make me healthier, this can make me live longer, it gives me more time with my kids, it gives me more time with my mom, it gives me more time to share the things I've learned to make other people's life better. Maybe it's just the fact that it gives you more time to curl up with your cat. But it's one of those things that the effort you make in these areas create a chain reaction in your life. And the more you self-advocate in positive ways, the stronger you become at taking up space. And we're at a point in our life where people of different demographics and different groups are having to practice taking up space in a world that might not have been easy for them to take up space based on other people's expectations. The beautiful thing about Phi Theta Kappa is that we're an international organization and there's room for us all. And there's room for us all to shine. And so this is a space that they've created for you to be able to practice taking up space as scholars and as Phi Theta Kappa people that are modeling the type of leadership we need. So direct exposure. What do you want to be the focus of your direct exposure? How will you access this exposure during current obstacles? And who or what organization can provide direct exposure in the areas identified? So say that you want to become a better athlete as part of your self-advocacy. Say you want to create or have a support group of other LGBT people because you don't know many and you don't have people to talk to. Say that you deal with depression or you're neurodivergent and you're so used to listening to people that don't understand what it's like to go through that, that you need to be a part or exposed to some people that might understand what it is to go through those things. Say you're trying to deal with grief because you've lost a loved one. These are all things in which we need to self-advocate for ourselves and sometimes are harder than others. So one of the things I learned is, what do you want to be the focus of your direct exposure? So if my area is, I want to work on recovering from something that's going on in my life that I haven't processed and that is hard to deal with emotionally. So maybe that means I need to go to a therapist. Maybe that means I need to check in with student success because I'm not doing as well in class because I'm dealing with this thing at home. Maybe it's I need to check my human resources benefits at my job to see if I can get some family leave to help take care of my kid. Maybe it's the fact that you need to decide to hang out with people that have succeeded and passed whatever it is you're trying to do, to know that it's possible and hear that they can give you some guidance and provide you some support along the journey. The other thing is, how will you access this exposure during current obstacles? So say that you're having those moments when you're struggling to study for a test and you're struggling to deal with a teacher. Maybe there's an alumni from your chapter that succeeded in that class and they can sit and tell you, one of the things that helped me was studying this way. It could be as easy as an email, but finding other people that have gone through similar things and can help give you tools or ways to self-advocate. Reaching for that assistance and getting that direct exposure can help you learn, one, you're not alone, and two, there are ways to succeed. The other thing is, who or what organization can provide direct exposure in the area identified. So say you're struggling with research. Say that you don't know where to find peer-reviewed articles having to do with current topics within the past 5 years. One of your biggest resources right there for direct exposure might be your librarian. It could be your English teacher if you're struggling to write papers. It could be your coach if you're trying to work on an injury or condition. It could be a local gardener if you want to learn how to keep plants alive other than a cactus. Whatever you're trying to do in self-advocacy or growth, think about what organizations or what groups can help you. And within that, think about the ways that Phi Theta Kappa can be one of those organizations, and the members of Phi Theta Kappa can be some of those people. All right. The next thing is to think about specific people when you're talking about the different areas. So, who are the leaders you must meet or have met through PTK to help close these gaps? Now, remember, the gaps are where you're starting out now and where you want to get. And I want to be real clear from the start. When I think about leaders in Phi Theta Kappa, every member of Phi Theta Kappa is a leader in one way or another. Some people are transformational leaders. Some people are servant leaders. Some people are a combination of all sorts of leadership. But everybody in Phi Theta Kappa is a leader. You wouldn't be a member if you weren't. Um, but one of the things that I think was very important for me in my membership was connecting with the international officers or the regional officers or my chapter officers, because the people that I met in those times are still people that I bounce ideas off of, because they made it safe for me to think critically in front of them, to question things in front of them, and to have academic and scholarly conversations, even if we disagree. So maybe you want to do math. And I think there's probably a few math whizzes at the top of Phi Theta Kappa that might be excited about something like that, to tell you how you can use statistics to move yourself forward in careers. Or maybe you love literature. I bet you there's some leadership at Phi Theta Kappa that could share their favorite books or how different writers changed their life. Um, the people are there, but you may not know their name. And so it may start with, hey, I want to learn more about advocating for the homeless. Who do you know in Phi Theta Kappa that might be able to help me? We all have social media in one way or another for the most part. And we may not know, but we might have a friend of a friend that knows within our network of Phi Theta Kappa. And it's not weird for me to get on with a bunch of alumni and say, hey, is anybody working in this arena? We've got a member that is interested in looking at this type of work or this type of volunteering. So how can they do that? We've got regional alumni officers right now who are working at food banks to help get food to people in need during time of COVID. So when students reach out and they're like, I want to do some advocacy having to do with food scarcity, we put those people in connection, because one can help them tap into the access they need to self-advocate in the area they want, and the other person realizes that they've got part of their talents and time to invest and pay that forward. So part of the self-advocacy is being intentional about finding people that can facilitate your growth and helping move it forward. The other thing I want to talk about is what other PTK resources can help you close the gap. There's one thing that everybody on this call is doing right now that would help prepare almost anybody that entered the COVID life and region of business, and that's using things like Zoom or doing virtual meetings. The fact that you want to learn more and you want to grow, PTK has these resources, and it's an international organization, so it uses platforms that if you had just met with your chapter or been with the kids in your school, you may not have used in other ways prior to this time. But because you're part of Phi Theta Kappa, you've got these tools, you've got people to help you learn to use these tools, you've got people to help your advisor learn to use these tools. And they're things that we have been using long before to help us connect. And so whether it's technology we can use, whether it's the PTK Connects that can help link your exact background with the scholarship that's going to make your life easier and more accessible, these are all different resources you can use to help leverage for self-advocacy. So if there's an area where you're weak in, whether it's the research or whether it is maybe it's navigating talking to people in power. And so for your college project, for the first time you sit down with part of the administration, have your first conversation. That's a way to self-advocate and build skills that you're not as confident in. And so through the PTK resources and through the PTK activities that you do, there are always ways you can take the area of your life and self-advocate and apply it to improve the quality of your life. The next thing that I think is a key component in self-advocacy is research. What research can you do to help close the gaps? And this is definitely a tool of mine that I had before Phi Theta Kappa, but I definitely grew in how I could use it and ways I could apply it. From when you sign up for your first job or sign up for healthcare or talk to your doctor or go out and try and find jobs or try and figure out whether or not something is equitable or fair. All of that is research. All of it is assessing whether or not a reference is a viable reference or whether it might have bias. Um, the tools like research and reading that you can do can help you close those gaps, because the difference between people who have options and don't have options is awareness. And the way you gain that awareness is through research. And through the tools that you're able to receive through Phi Theta Kappa, you can develop skills for sound research. And so, those of you who have gone through the research edge and know those tools, I encourage you to be intentional about applying that to your self advocacy. Um, for me, when I found out that I had diabetes, I had to research what was really healthy, what was not healthy. How can I treat my body in ways that's going to help, in ways that are going to help me live longer, live stronger, be better? And so the research part of this is very important, as well as ensuring that the sources you're listening to are healthy sources that are not just promoting an agenda, but actually things that you can draw from for your own experience. The other thing I want to look at is other resources and actions. What other actions, resources can you do or use through this program to help close the gap? So maybe you're an officer in your club, or maybe you're not even an officer in your club and you're trying to build your resume and you're trying to learn some things. And they say they've got a fundraiser coming up. And you really like graphic design, and that may be what you do. And so you volunteer to do this thing that you love by creating the flyer for it and helping design the art, or maybe helping to design a t-shirt or a pin. And then that way you're self-advocating for something that you love, but you're also using Phi Theta Kappa or organizations to create something that benefits your organization, benefits your community, helps you grow through self-advocacy, but also something you can put on your resume, something that's going to increase your possibility of getting scholarships and also make you more employable. Now, I know that we can do a lot through Phi Theta Kappa, but sometimes there are also other groups, activities, or initiatives you want to get involved in. And sometimes we do this as a chapter. Sometimes we'll see something like Habitat for Humanity building houses in our area. And maybe one of the self-advocacy things, like me, was I didn't necessarily have a safe place to live my whole life. And I want everybody in my community to have a safe place to live. I would like for everybody to have a safe place to live, but this is an area in which I can self-advocate. And so maybe I talk to my chapter, hey, this is going on, maybe we can do that. Maybe I really love to be involved in the Lions Club, or maybe I like to help people be able to navigate a world where if they're visually impaired or if they're hearing impaired, they still have access to. One of the things Lions Club does is they collect old glasses and redistribute them to different people. And so if you go around to different people and you're like, hey, do you have any old glasses? You can, one, engage with those people. You can advocate for two things you believe in, but you're also facilitating a connection where people that don't have access are gaining access because you were aware that this is something you could do. And it's something you could do in 10 minutes. And it's a way you could self-advocate to say, hey, I'm this person, I'm me, and I want to contribute to my community because that's part of what makes me feel good. And so that's another way that people self-advocate. It may be that you have a member of your family, or you can empathize with the cause. And so you're not just advocating for others, but you're literally bringing in tools and things that you need. I talked about this a little bit about balancing inflow and outflow. A lot of the time, we end up being the leaders all the time, and we don't always take a minute to receive. And a lot of times people do it the other way. Sometimes they inflow too much and never share. And so there's this balance that happens between inflow and outflow, especially with self-advocacy. I do outreach and things like this. I go around and deliver different trainings on different topics to different organizations. But one of the things I also have to do is I have to feed myself. I need to go and hear other people speak. I need to read books. I need to listen to music, and I need to have a balance between putting things in my head and putting things in my heart, and then sharing things from my head and from my heart. And practicing both the inflow and outflow of that on each one of your areas can create an ebb and flow in your life that makes you feel more at cause. There's areas where you're growing, and there's areas where you're helping others grow. And that makes you feel more capable, especially when you start doubting yourself. You've got physical evidence that people can use this to make a difference in my life, and I can also pay it forward and use it to make a difference in other people's life. So whether it's taking a moment in the morning to read a devotional, if that's what is your belief system, or if it's taking a moment in the afternoon to sit on your patio and drink a cup of tea, taking a moment to take things in and reflect on your day. But then at night, whether it's a time to write in your journal or record a podcast or talk to one of your friends on Skype or something, having a balance of inflow and outflow on your area of weakness, your area of strength, and the way that you can use your passion for self-advocacy. Those are all ways you can balance inflow and outflow. And if you define those things, at least for me, I became more grateful for those areas in my life. The next thing I want to talk about, we talked about people that you can directly contact with, but I want to talk about the voices we let in our head when we're talking about self-advocacy. There's a lot of times when we get caught up in an area where we need change and we need growth. That there are thoughts that play over and over in your head, or there are common misconceptions, or there are things that you believe. And so one of the things I ask all my students and all the people I train to reflect on is, who are the influencers, mentors, and sponsors that can help you achieve what you want to achieve? One of the biggest things that I don't know that many people understand that they teach elementary reading teachers is one of the biggest way that people build compassion and understanding for people different than them is reading books by authors or stories about lives other than their own and people from different backgrounds. And that helps them create empathy for worlds they never would have been exposed to otherwise. And so one of the influencers that I would name in my life of how to navigate a world that probably wasn't created with you in mind was reading all of Maya Angelou's biographies. As somebody who was a survivor, and found a way to balance benevolence and authenticity in a way that was radically vulnerable. That voice was a voice of power in my life, not because it was prideful and confident, but because it was a survivor and I identified with that survivor. Now, sometimes there's people that are mentors or sponsors in your life. And when I would talk about sponsors, I talk about people that physically invest in you. And this could be the scholarships you get through PTK Connects. And for me, one of the biggest sponsors in my life was Jackie Heights. One of the biggest things that I was advocating for right as I was finishing community college was my dad had dementia. And I didn't know how to balance work and life and school and still self-advocate. And I wrote some very honest responses to some very, very big scholarship questions when I reflected on them. And through the work of the scholarship team and Jackie Heights, I was able to secure financing that allowed me to both care for my dad during his last years and created access to people I never would have had that have been part of my professional journey moving forward. So the people that invest in you, both financially and time-wise, whether it's the people that design programs at Phi Theta Kappa, there are people who are willing to sponsor you, whether it's Geico giving you a discount. You have people wanting to sponsor you because you are a Phi Theta Kappa. Discover those, figure out how those can be leveraged to use for your self-advocacy because you've already earned them. They're just waiting for you to claim them and find ways to leverage them. I want to take a minute to talk about this just because I think it's important. Self-care and boundaries. What are the self-care steps and boundaries you must take or set to help close those gaps? If you're anything like me, sometimes you try so hard and you're really hard on yourself. And one of the things that I hope most of us are learning to do, both those of us who are alumni or people that work at headquarters, or that are advisors and the scholars. They're learning new ways to create self-care in a world that's changing. And some days self-care looks like taking a bubble bath, but sometimes self-care looks like I need to make myself eat right now. I need to step away from this for 30 seconds before I send this email. I need to talk to somebody to see if I'm being reactionary rather than actually processing this. And so setting those boundaries both for yourself or even for others, when you're like, I'm only going to work at a place that I can look at myself in the mirror and be okay with me going to that workplace every day. Like that was a boundary that I had to set. There are a lot of things that I'm passionate about in self-advocacy, but if I couldn't work somewhere and show up and be me, that was a boundary in which this was an opportunity that I just wasn't going to take because it wasn't good for my self-advocacy and my health. The self-care part though, remember that that's a spectrum and it looks different for everybody. And sometimes it's different from day to day. So the self-care steps, if I want my self-advocacy to be on health, might be I need to make myself drink more water each day, or I need to at least drink this much water each day. And it may start as simple as that. Or when, say, you're getting over an injury or something like that, you're like, I'm going to get outside for 15 minutes each day and just get some sun and walk. I need some vitamin D and I need some me time where I disconnect from everything. The self-care component is something that historically has been underappreciated, but now there is definitely a movement and a cause in which it's justified. And I don't want any scholar to ever think that self-care is selfish. It took me a long time to realize that self-care is how we make ourselves able to do the things that we are great at doing. And so try and reflect on ways that you can prioritize self-care and boundaries when you work on each one of these areas you decide. The final thing that I added on this for Phi Theta Kappa was to talk about the hallmarks, how each one of those can be used to close the gap. Like, how can leadership be used to help me in self-advocacy, close the gap in this one area? Maybe it's I'll go and start a club for people who are going through a similar experience. Maybe it's the fact that I'll start using a hashtag that helps me connect with other people. When women started speaking out and openly starting the Me Too movement, it might have started as just a hashtag, but the leadership of adding something that linked those stories together was an act of leadership and a self-advocacy act of leadership. And so now there is a community and a support system building up around it that is trying to find new ways to collectively navigate these collective traumas. And that's the path of self-advocacy these people are on. Now, what about scholarship? Are there ways that I can both leverage financial scholarship and academic scholarship? And so taking things like, I want to be an engineer, but I know I can't afford tuition to the schools that are topping that. So maybe I get on HR Connects. I mean, not HR Connects, sorry, PTK Connects, my apologies. And maybe I go and talk to people at the virtual college fair about what type of scholarships they have for people like me. Or maybe I do some research about different types of scholarship for people in different demographics. Maybe you're the first person in your family to go to college. Maybe there is special money earmarked that other people just don't know about. There is a whole team there to help you learn how to use scholarships to leverage for your personal growth as members. And there's a beautiful system to both set up to do personal research and to now apply on the common applications to be able to do those things as well. The other thing is, how can service help me close these gaps? How can the things that I do and the ways I volunteer help me grow in the areas that I want to be intentional about? And I think this one is often underrated, but fellowship is one of the more powerful things that Phi Theta Kappa helped me give. There were a lot of unhealthy people in my life at different points in my life, but I had a group of people that I knew cared about me. I knew wanted me to be myself, and I knew would be honest with me and hold me accountable to the things I say. And a lot of those people were staffers. A lot of those people were the leadership of Phi Theta Kappa. A lot of those people were officers. But a lot of them too were the new members that came in and go, why is this important to you? And so I built those relationships, honest, authentic relationships. And I'm going to be honest with you, when you enter the workforce, one of the biggest things that people need to learn is the relationships you create and the social collateral you build are some of the biggest tools that you can use for self-advocacy and to forward whatever thing you're passionate about or you care about. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have the practice and the skill at developing those relationships and building those networks, you may not be as successful as those who do. And Phi Theta Kappa gives you all the tools to do that, and it gives you different levels to practice it at. I know people that practice fellowship behind a keyboard. I know people that practice fellowship from calling people on the phone. I know people that practice fellowship by having virtual Zoom meetings every once in a while. But creating and maintaining healthy relationships is one of the keys, I think, to self-advocacy. Now, I know I have unloaded a lot on you, and I want to take a minute and ask if there are any questions from the group.
And I'll come in and say, if you do have questions, you can drop them either in the Q&A box or the chat box. I am monitoring both of those for you. Don't be shy.
While you guys are typing in some, I know I've shared a lot with you, and that's a lot to pack into an hour. But I want to also show you the visual of the template that I created in case anybody wants it. And Lori, I know you guys have it there and I have it as well. So if we want to put my email or your email for the people who want to request it.
We're happy to share it. We've got a team that can share it.
Okay.
Not clog up our inboxes much, maybe.
Okay. So what I've done is, I know that was a lot of things to cover, but what I do probably once a week is I sit down and I figure out what boxes I can fill in. And so for you guys, what I did is set it up with a place for your name, your chapter, and then I put Phi Theta Kappa there. And one of the things that helps me is to pick an accountability partner, somebody that I can bounce ideas off with. Most of the time, it's one of my best friends because she's capable of calling me out when I'm not doing best by myself. And I need that as an accountability partner in this. And across here, I put headers where you can substitute in your area of weakness, strength, area of passion. And then below it, I put a place for you to put your notes on what is the area, and what is your why? Why is that important to you? Why is this an area of growth? And then what I've done is I've created a table of all these things. And even off to the side, there's a place where you can select sessions or trainings at different levels and different elements that Phi Theta Kappa have. And over in this column F, you can do that. And then those are going to be different things that you can check off. When this webinar comes off, that's a way for me to work on self-advocacy, or this is a way for me to work on my leadership skills. And so this is a template I have that can take you all the way through every question I asked, if you want to sit and reflect. And this is just a way for you to confront tools that you have right in your toolbox right now, and ways you can move forward towards goals, towards your self-advocacy, and the tools that you have to leverage. These things have always been here at your fingertips, but hopefully this will give you ways to explore the website, explore what's there, do some research, and add those things to tools you can use from Phi Theta Kappa. So I see we've got some messages.
Yep, got a question from Juliet. She would love to know how she gets in touch with people that can help achieve goals.
One of the things that the first thing I would do is, there is a lot of trainings out there going on for free right now because people are doing COVID. I would get on LinkedIn and I would start searching hashtags for goal setting, for things like that. There's one way to do it through that. By linking to that, there's all sorts of companies that are out there delivering stuff on setting goals. The other thing is I would monitor what's coming up through Phi Theta Kappa. Whether they do a virtual annual conference this year, there's sometimes sessions on different topics. Whether there's an honors institute coming up, there are ways for you to address different topics. The other thing is maybe talk to your chapter about bringing somebody in that focuses on project management or goal setting or organizational developing leadership. The other thing is there's a lot of great books out there. And if you wanted me to, I could actually reach around to some alumni What are some great books that you guys found out about setting goals? You also could start that conversation in any one of the Phi Theta Kappa platforms that you've got groups in, whether your chapter does, your region does, on social media, because digital engagement is a resource that's amazing right now. And there's a lot of people wanting to communicate and reach out. So if there are ways that I can help connect you to stuff like that, I do have some personal knowledge, but I would start by using the skills you learn through research to go through different hashtags, go through searches. And then if you look at different things that come up in common with other Phi Theta Kappa members, I've noticed that a lot of my Phi Theta Kappa friends choose better resources than some of my other friends. So that's just a little inside tip from my personal biased opinion. So
Awesome. In the Q&A box, there's a question. There's actually a two-part question. Where do you find the activities that you mentioned, and where do you find the resources/actions?
okay.
So if you
Do you want to share screen or do you want me to share screen?
you can share screen, that's fine.
Okay, I was gonna say I can go to the Phi Theta Kappa website. Hold on just a minute. See if my password is in there still.
If it's not, I can hop in, not a problem. I'll find a
Well,
screen.
I'm gonna guess that you know the updated one more than I do, but
Let's see.
I'll let you pull it up. I'm gonna be honest. It's making me nervous to do it live.
I got you. All right,
For the record, it has been over a half a decade since I was an active member. I do go on the website probably more frequently than I should, but I am not as familiar as somebody who actually works with it on the daily. I will acknowledge my limit.
all right. If you could make me a co-host, that would be awesome.
Okay. If I can figure out how to do that. I've got 3 panelists.
Yeah, I think up in the little yeah.
Make co-host. There you go. Yes.
Cool. All right.
I'm learning things today too. See, it still helps you with your self-advocacy and development.
Oh, I've got some boxes open. Let's see.
I had to do that before I came in.
All right.
So there are different things on the website while she's pulling it up. And so there's going to be different types of trainings, different types of resources. So if you want to show them where some of the trainings or videos or professional development or student development, however you want to look at it, they're both.
So I am very well schooled in the scholarship tab. I'll be
okay.
honest.
So
But
HR Connects is one of, I mean, not HR, what PTK Connects.
PTK Connect, if you'll go to I am transferring, you'll hover over 4-year college scholarships for PTK members. You click on that, you'll see the link. Is it working on your end? Come on, there you go. Visit PTK Connect.
Okay, so if you go to this link, what it's going to do, it's going to take different things that you search for and connect you with schools that are offering scholarships to people like you in that area. So maybe you want to be in a certain discipline, or maybe you might be connected with, maybe there's an area or region that you want to go to for self-advocacy. I'm not aware of all the scholarships that are currently there, but I bet you there's a couple people on this phone that can help us with that, this call.
There's about 900 in PTK Connect right now. We'll be meeting with 30 schools tomorrow during the transfer fair, and they'll talk a little bit more about the functionality of Connect. But
Okay.
it's a powerful tool. It really is. It can help you get connected to subject matter, to, like you say, advocacy groups or geographical locations. You can compare. You can favorite them. There's just tons of, and within these college connections are contacts at those particular colleges. So not only can you find out about the colleges, you can find a person at that college to connect with.
So maybe one of your activities will be to find 3 people to connect with for scholarships. And so you define that activity for yourself, and that's something you can do in an evening while you're sitting there with some of your friends from the chapter. Like, let's go down and let's look at, maybe I want to go to school in Colorado. Maybe I want to go to school in California so I can go to the beach. Whatever your version of self-care, self-advocacy, maybe I want to go to this place that is where music came from, and I love music. And so there are different ways you can do searches and databases, but you decide that your activity is, I'm going to go find one place that I never thought of going to school that might have a scholarship for me. And that's an activity and a resource that you have to advocate for yourself that PTK gives you access that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right. Another good resource that we have on the site are the Edge platforms. You mentioned research, and so the Research Edge, the Transfer Edge, the Employment Edge, Competitive Edge. Those are all listed under the benefits section of the website.
Okay, so each one of these have individual training you can do. They've got different modules. You actually can earn badges on LinkedIn that'll make you more competitive for other scholarships. So these are one of those butterfly effect things that say I want to be the first guy in my family to get a master's. This will have different skills that will make you have an edge over other people applying for that job, applying for that scholarship, applying for that school. And these are the tools that you have right now, and they're part of the benefits of your membership.
Right. And I mean, we say that there's resources everywhere. I'm a big fan of Google. If I have a question about anything, Google's my first go-to. Um, and so virtual engagement was a real big deal for us. And so I just Googled virtual engagement and I found pages of ways to be involved. And you can narrow that down by your passion or your anything. You just have to do the research. I think you just have to put it out there. And if you don't find it, your PTK advisor can help you. Um, Alumni, your local alumni association can help you. Just have to ask the questions.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I know that one of the things that changed big time was after Hurricane Katrina, there were some apps developed to help connect to resources in the area. It was developed from a system that they conceived of during the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Say people needed food staples over here, or people needed sandbags over here. An app was created to help connect people in need with different resources. And so there's different types of apps that have popped up over the last 15 years to help connect people to other resources in their area, whether it's youth support groups, whether it's substance abuse, like say that your partner has substance abuse issues and you need a way to self-advocate as somebody who's living in that situation. There are so many tools out there, but using that research that you can do, whether it's digital research, whether it's academic research, there's so, I mean, the applications are endless. Okay, are you there?
Yeah, my computer is locking up and I can't even figure out how to unshare my screen now. So
Okay.
yeah, you have to take over again.
That's fine. There's how much should I be involved in my chapter with school programs being so demanding? How are you finding um how are you finding the balance, sorry, between schoolwork and chapter involvement? I'm gonna be honest. There are times when I need a break from schoolwork as part of my self-care. And so I felt less guilty about taking a break from schoolwork if I was actively doing something with Phi Theta Kappa or one of my other organizations. And so rather than getting on YouTube and watching videos or something like that, what I would do is I go to the PTK website and I would look for something that I could do. And part of the reason I did that is because there were only 2 people on my campus that were really active in PTK when I started. We had a 4-campus college, and the really big part of the chapter was on the other campus. And so a lot of what I had to learn about Phi Theta Kappa was what I did with the computer, and I did it in my own time. So when I would be doing schoolwork, or say it was one night where I decided I'm going to give myself tonight off of schoolwork, I would make sure that I spend 30 minutes of that night in some type of self growth, whether it's going out and playing frisbee golf with my friends, or um, meeting up with some of the other alumni that had come before me and we'd do a ropes course, or we'd go do one of those rooms where you're trapped in and you have to figure out the puzzle. It was a way for me to be intentional about taking a break from schoolwork. But I also know that one of the things that's important is setting boundaries. And so learning when I had to say no, or learning when I needed to let other people be the leaders and me be the support group was also something I practiced. Because finding a way to balance those things takes practice. And I promise you, there are still people at my age and much older that are still trying to practice those skills. But be okay with taking a break every once in a while and doing your work, and don't feel like you have to do all of it. Um, but also be willing to take a minute and see this as an investment in yourself for the things you want to do. You can be as involved as you want to, and that's the beauty of Phi Theta Kappa. There's always more you can do, but you're already a member, and these are just benefits of memberships you can leverage. So it's not necessarily an expectation, it's just a tool that's given to you to be an asset if you choose to use it.
Good deal. So I want to be respectful of our time. We're just a little bit over, but for anyone else who has questions, if you want to email those to scholarships@ptk.org, we'll try to answer them. And if we can't, we'll get them to Rob so that he can connect with you. Rob, if you want to drop your email address in the chat box, that's cool too. I did want to thank you for being here and sharing all that awesome information. I learned something every single time we connect. You're just awesome, and I just love you big. I want to also remind everybody that we've got more virtual engagement events coming up this week. Check out social for links. If you need some links for events, go ahead and email us at scholarships.ptk.org. I'll try to drop that email address in the chat box before I log off. And don't forget, we've got the Apple Chat on Thursday at noon. Everybody sign up tomorrow. It's going to be so exciting and interesting. We want as many people as we can to connect with Apple and hear all the exciting information they have to share. And with your permission, Rob, we will wrap this up. And everybody have templates. If you want a template, email us at scholarships. I'm doing this right now at ptk.org. Say I want a copy of Rob's template. We'll get it for you. Our email address is all over the webs, all over the PTK website. You can always find it, or you can hit us up at help@ptk.org. They'll get it to us. So I appreciate you. Let's wrap it up, and everybody have a great afternoon. Thank y'all.